Good evening and welcome to Thank You Five. This is a weekly show hosted by Straw Dog Theater Company, where we bring together theater artists from all around the globe in a conversation about live theater in a digital world with the spirit of gratitude and innovation. My name is Michael Reyes, and I will be your host for this episode. I am a Straw Dog Ensemble member, class of 2018. I also have the privilege of serving on the board as president. Side note, we're always looking for passionate and talented folks to join the board, so if you're interested, I'd love to talk to you about that. Check out our website for more information. I've been a member of the great Chicago theater community for almost as long as Straw Dog has been around. And I am very, very happy to be here with you tonight. If you are watching this on YouTube, you can head over to strawdog.org/thankyou5 to join the chat, ask questions, and more importantly, vote on the questions so that we know which ones you want us to ask our panelists. And speaking of our panelists, let's meet our group for tonight, starting with, I'm going to pick Danny.
Hey everybody, I'm Danny, and I'm currently in Chicago, Illinois.
Fantastic. Give us a little bit about your background, Danny.
Oh, background, sure. I am a graduate of the school at Steppenwolf class of 2019. I graduated from University of Southern California in Los Angeles, the BFA acting program in 2021. And I'm now splitting my time as an artist between Chicago and Los Angeles. And my next upcoming production will be The Lion in Winter at the Court Theater.
Oh, wow.
So everyone should come down and see that next month, beginning of November.
Awesome. Fantastic. Mary.
Hi, I'm Mary Hollis Inboden, and I'm glad to be with you all. I'm currently at my house in Jonesboro, Arkansas. I split my time between Jonesboro and Los Angeles, California. A little bit about me. I cut my teeth in theater in Memphis, Tennessee and Chicago, Illinois for 10 years, 2006 to 2016, maybe around there, before relocating to Los Angeles, where for the past little bit, I've mostly been doing film and TV. But recently had a wonderful theater experience as we wait out the current strikes underway in Hollywood. So that's me. I'm glad to be here.
Awesome. Fantastic. Jitesh.
Hey everyone, my name is Jitesh Jaggi. I'm an immigrant from India. I moved here about 5 years ago. Have a background in spoken word poetry, came here and immediately got into storytelling. Have been an active storyteller for the last 5 years. Theater I pretty much stumbled into it. I put together a solo show and someone connected me with someone else to pitch them. And I came home and I told my partner, oh yeah, Steppenwolf is interested. She's like, Steppenwolf is going to produce your show. I was like, yeah. So since then, I've been trying to learn more about theater. So I'm here.
Awesome. Awesome. Fantastic. And Susie, bring us home.
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Susie Krickerberg. I've been acting now for about 10, 12 years. I had a first career as a psychologist working with kids and families, took a voiceover class for fun, and it led to acting classes, improv classes. I did some live lit stuff like Jitest. I did stand-up comedy and improv. But in the end, I really like live theater the best. And that's where the bulk of my experience has been. And my first ever Chicago storefront gig was a show that Michael was in, Born Ready at the Factory Theater. So it's a small world. And Danny and I, we didn't know we were on the panel together tonight, but we are school at Steppenwolf classmates.
Oh,
and
amazing.
I love him, even though he graduated from USC and I am a UCLA alumni.
Okay, we will save rivalries for a future podcast or future Thank You Five. But for now, thank you all. Let's start out as we always do with the awesome question that we've been asking our panelists. What is theater? I'm going to pause for just a moment. Whoever would like to go first, you begin speaking, and after a few minutes, if no one starts speaking, I will start picking on people. So, who's first?
Well, I'll go first.
Go ahead, Susie.
I think to me, the essence of theater is storytelling. And it's storytelling that helps us understand ourselves, other people, and the world in a better way. My most moving moments of theater in my life has been sitting in an audience and hearing words and being like, oh my God, yes, that describes my life in words that I couldn't articulate. But now that you've articulated that way, I feel understood and connected. And I just think it's magic. So to me, it's about storytelling.
And to
Storytelling.
piggyback on that, I
Yeah,
just
do.
want to jump in. I think that's so beautifully said, Susie. I also think that in a way that separates theater from film and TV is there are in that exchange two beating hearts in the same space.
Mm-hmm.
And how much more powerful that is when you are breathing with someone who is has maybe shared the same experience that you have in a way that is not over there, it's right here. And how much more connected does that feel?
Oh, absolutely. I agree.
Is the other beating heart on stage with you or in the audience? Is that what is the?
I'm talking about the audience. The thing for theater is my favorite shared experience. It is the actor and audience, because is it even theater if you don't have an audience involved?
I mean, there have been some panelists that we've had on that would say it is it is. You know, I'm with you. I do also enjoy the rapport with the audience. I think it's an essential ingredient.
Yeah.
I don't know, Danny, Jitesh, what are your thoughts?
Mine is I do take the approach that I think theater demands an in-person participant. It demands that exchange, because I think what theater is to me is there's actually, I'm going to steal a quote from Brian Cox from Succession, who I really like. He said, "Theater is the one true church." I think
Okay.
theater and art in general, I think, has always taken and I don't mean one true church and your bearded man in the sky versus my bearded man in the sky, in terms of the divine or the transcendent. I think theater is the one true church in that it is taking these universals, these human real world universals, examining them with a surgeon-like precision so as to reach a unifying transcendent experience. And I think that necessarily is for the person on stage and for the audience experiencing that, and is built upon and made stronger depending on so will an actor on stage will see an audience have an experience, and that will strengthen their experience, which in turn strengthens the audience's experience. And that does demand, I think, both two physical presences in the space, on the receiving end and on the providing end, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, I don't think since we've been here, at least as I've hosted, that anyone has characterized it as unity in that way. That's very interesting to me. That's very interesting. Who did I just interrupt right now? I'm sorry.
I was just giving a big fuck yeah to my partners on the call.
Fantastic. Awesome. Jitesh?
Yeah, theater to me is just an opportunity to embody somebody's life that you wouldn't get a chance to live otherwise. There are so many different lifestyles that you could live in a single week through the theater. So I literally just see it as a delivery mechanism for empathy. It's people sitting through this different experience in front of them. And I say empathy because the more we understand each other through these characters, the less we are likely to hate them. And theater provides just the most opportunity for you to hate less and less kind of people.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, certainly other art forms. Sorry, I'm trying to turn off my texting here, but like certainly other art forms do present other stories, but it it is interesting that you have to be in the room for that. I mean, is that empathy comes up a lot in these conversations? Is that kind of where you're going with that, Jitesh?
For sure, for sure. It's basically just the more I see somebody's story, the more it becomes easier for me to accept that I wouldn't have done much different if I was in their position. And the only reason that I hold a different stance is because until now, I have never imagined myself with these circumstances. So thank you for the opportunity to kind of like let me embody this world. I know it's presented to me, but I sometimes just feel like I'm like airdropped into that scene that's playing in front of me. And if it's done well, that's what it's supposed to do, right? Like you are literally surrounded by this.
Yeah.
And I can no longer kind of like extract myself from these people in these situations. And the next time I see something like that in real life, I'm like, oh yeah, I see you. Like I understand what you're going through, or I understand where you're coming from.
Yeah. So
For me,
theater is a change agent. Go ahead. Sorry, Danny,
For
go.
me, that's the transcendent. I think only the transcendent and that which is bigger than all of us is bigger than the issues that divide us from person to person can be the thing that unifies us. And so it's creating that transcendent empathy too, something that you can't help but just see the person across from you, even the other actors. You start to just have moments and feelings of this is just another human being. I really believe in that deeply. I think that's well articulated. The way you just said it.
So theater is a mirror as well.
Theater's definitely a mirror. Shakespeare said that, right? It's the holding the mirror up to humanity. And I think it's important that the mirror reflects the specific dividing issues of the day while not being confined to the issues of the day. This is my opinion. I think that the more an emphasis is put on universal truths that reflect the mirror of us to each other now, and also us to humans from 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 100 years ago, 1,000 years ago, I think that accomplishes much more than something that speaks to or attempts to speak to a dividing issue that is prevalent now. I think it does it more powerfully because it speaks to our nature instead of circumstance and context, which is almost kind of a different conversation in a lot of ways.
I agree. I think that theater is a mirror. And I'm sure everybody on this call experienced this exercise. I was really young in one of my first theater classes when the teacher said, I want you all to go away with a notebook and I want you to watch somebody in real life. And I want you to take notes on that. You know, this person at the bus stop, this lady at the grocery store, your parents, whoever you have access to. And I want you to watch them for a really, a good amount of time. I want you to take notes on that. And then in the next class, we were meant to kind of step into those shoes. And with dialogue or not, we were kind of mimicking these observations, right? And through that exercise, I started to go like, I don't have a word for it yet, but it is empathy. Like all of a sudden, some things that don't make sense to me when I have to like share my body with their experience or whatever, that was so, it was so transformative for me. So like, I think that's when I really got bit by the bug, because what happens in a live theater experience and why I think theater cannot exist without an audience is then you give that experience, whatever you've observed, to the audience. You become that person that you've observed, that you've studied, that you're practicing empathy for and to. Why is this person this way? You give that to the audience and they are now the observer, like you were the kid in class taking notes,
So, vaudeville is a kind of theater. I don't know if it has the empathy generating qualities that we've been talking about here. So am I right about that? Is pure entertainment, is that also theater? Is that?
I would love to hop in, and I know I have. I've hopped in maybe once too many times, but this will be. Let me just get this one in. I'm a huge professional wrestling fan, and the Goodman Theater. I saw. I was thinking about this because I saw one of the questions. What was your first jaw drop moment in a theater? Maybe we'll get to that later, but I might sneak in mine now. It was when I was at WrestleMania this past year. Was definitely when I had my most recent jaw-dropping moment. And I do believe it's similar to that vaudeville. The Goodman is actually putting on a Lucha Teatro right now, which is a pro wrestling show. Beautiful in that it appeals to an audience right now that is desperately wanting to participate in what's happening on stage. You see that in a lot of theater you go to, vocalizations and sounds coming from the audience. They're craving to participate in that way. Pro wrestling provides that in a really powerful way. It's built on that, actually. So even these things that vaudeville or these carnival-esque type pro wrestling things may be deemed as entertainment, I think can actually take the place of being, in a lot of ways, high art or good, really powerful theater, in that if there's an emphasis in some way on the universals of human behavior, and even if that's characterized or amplified in a really profound way, it still can say something, and in fact sometimes needs to be amplified as we love our nuance and we love our subtlety on film and TV, which is great, but sometimes we gotta hit the hammer on the head, and sometimes it does take a pro wrestling type good versus evil, good guy versus bad guy to get the point.
I mean, even if you take the story away, like even if you take the story, like they're, these crazy given circumstances or whatever these wrestlers are going through, right? Even if you take that all away, your audience is still feeling so many things. And that's got to be, I mean, that is theater. Vaudeville is theater. They're having a feeling. They might not be sobbing with you. We hope sometimes that they get a break from that.
Well, and I also think people are diverse. I mean, people have a world of complexity inside of them and all kinds of needs. And sometimes that need is for drama or for self-understanding or something that might feel like higher art, quote unquote. But I also think we need to laugh and we need to have joy. And we need to, I mean, it's a type of food. It's a food for the soul. And maybe sometimes we go to the theater to see ourselves, and maybe sometimes we go to the theater to get away from ourselves or forget the facts of our life for a little while and to be with some vaudeville folks that are really having at it and pratfalling and telling the puns and whatever. I mean,
have a chandelier drop from the ceiling, that kind of thing. Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, if there's a live action Bigfoot excursion, my boyfriend is going on it, and try telling him that is not a theatrical experience. Try telling him.
But sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm done.
Vaudeville, like, I understand what you're asking, like to make that distinction, because there is no clear necessarily message, but just the act of it to snatch joy and humor like from the jaws of the banal and mundane everyday life. You look at it cumulatively, over millennia, over human beings' existence, and it's like, when you are the onlooker of something like that, how do you not reflect back on situations that you have been stuck with in the past, that you have taken it so seriously? And here's this guy showing you like that exact situation, but he's not taking it that seriously, or he is, but everybody else agrees that it's not a big deal. So kind of like it kind of releases us from ourselves a little bit over time. Not in that moment maybe, but like it's a big deal to me to like see even somebody like Charlie Chaplin or whoever, but like to see somebody just like extract humor from somewhere you would not think that could be extracted. That is mind-blowing to me over time.
Yeah.
That was beautiful.
That was great. My other definition for what is theater is also that it's this great escape. While we like are while we're trying to empathize or connect, or we're emoting as an audience or an actor, right, on both sides, theater is this great escape. It's a great escape for the artist who are putting it up in front of somebody sometimes, and it's a great escape for the audience who needs to like actually not think about their own shit for a minute, and maybe not have a personal experience with that particular thing. Yes, it's going to show you different worlds, and yes, it's going to give you different opinions and how people live, and that's so exciting. But it can, I'm from the middle of nowhere, Arkansas, and my first theater experiences were like this, like movies, but theater, more importantly, like going in and watching somebody do something live, a real live human being standing in front of me. That was just like such an escape for me. That's it. Sorry. I didn't cut out. I
Okay.
Mitch McConnell for a second. Sorry.
Oh.
Yeah.
It was a hard stop.
And see.
Don't come at me. Do not come at me.
I mean, yeah, I mean, look, I feel like, what we're saying here, what we've said, a couple of times in these panels is like, it's really, okay, I assumed when we first started doing this, that we would just run out of episodes because we would just get the same answers over and over again. We would have nothing to talk about after a certain period of time. And exactly the opposite has occurred. I've learned something every time. I mentioned earlier about like, the theater companies that's like, actually, no, we're all virtual now. And I'm like, wait, how is that theater? And then we talked about how it's theater. And it's like, oh, okay, I see. And it was successful. They're actually quite successful at that model. Theater is just it's so many things. And I mean, I've hosted this, many times now, and I almost feel like the answer to what is theater is it's undefinable. I mean, there are certain things that are in common that come up in this conversation that I really truly enjoy, but we always end up with these, all y'all's take on this and the fascinating, conversations that we're having. Unity, I've never heard it quite put that way before. That's really great. So maybe we might just get through this quick, but what isn't theater? And in the realm of things that we do, what isn't theater? What, and is that even a thing? Like, when you look at all the stuff that's out there, like, that's not theater. That's definitely not theater, because we've compared video games in these conversations. We've said that's actually storytelling. That's a kind of theater.
Well, movies and TV are not theater.
Yeah.
They're not theater. Well, first of all, to me, they're not I love theater. And while I've had some good fortune of getting, bringing home some good pay from television shows, so please keep casting me in those. There is no theater is not something that you can start again. Theater is, you can't get, I mean, that curtain comes up, the moment starts and you're in it. You can't, I mean, while screw ups happen, I guess, all the time in live theater, and that's what makes it fun and kind of like gives it that beating heart and excitement. I mean, we are messing up all the time in film and TV, and somebody is there to like fix that mess by yelling cut and saying go again. Like, so theater is not where you can't fix, you can't stop and start,
Yeah. I think there's a magic about theater because it's in the moment and immediate, and it happens once and then that's it. It disappears, and you can't curate it and fix it in post. And I mean, I think, yeah, TV and movies tell stories and can be incredibly impactful, whether with humor, the roller coaster ride of a thrilling film or a genre film, the incredible dramas, and it's, of course, you have a feeling in response to that. But there's so much more that can happen in live theater because you're putting together so many elements. There's an audience And there's that energy. There's the group of actors. There's the back and forth between them. And you feel something when it's live that's just different than how you experience other storytelling mediums.
Oh, you helped me articulate that so well, Susie. I think also just the idea that, you know, when you do a play and things start going wrong, or and we hope they don't. We hope we're rehearsed well enough that you can, you know, kind of keep going. I think that the kind of the imperfection of that is something that the audience is so excited for. You know, like the idea that something might actually go awry, you know, is kind of exciting. And I'm not saying that every TV show or movie is good by any stretch. There's so much stuff that's being made. It can all be like actually well done. But there is more of a fail safe on actually like the quality. The curtain's probably not going to fall. And if it fell in a take, we're going to go back and reshoot that. I mean, I just miss my Chicago days being on theater where the audience was also so excited to watch something really be great right there in front of them immediately, or kind of not work and go along with all of that.
Yeah, I like this trying to figure out what is not theater by defining what is theater first. And I really like what is being said so far, like, you know, something that is live and present. And if I may add, something that's ephemeral, like you can't just recreate it as it is every single time. I, growing up, never had access to any theater, right? But you can't tell me that I used to be an investment banker, and I've seen the greatest shows in a boardroom where somebody's fumbling through a presentation for the first time, and everybody's like, I know he's fucking up right now, but he's trying to not show it.
Yeah.
Exactly, right? Like, how is that not theater? Like, how is my dad like recreating some scene that he had in the market in my kitchen? How is that not theater? But like me talking about it, somebody curating it beforehand, somebody criticizing it, or even, and I don't mean criticizing, I mean like even talking about it after the fact, that moment is not ephemeral, and that is not theater to me. But any present moment where something unfolds and the stakes are all over the place, and you live through it to discover what the stakes were, that is theater.
Oh,
so you're sharing the stakes. It's live. You're invested in the stakes, and that's great. That's great.
Well, and I also think there's a camaraderie and a team element. I mean, of course, when you create a play, there are a million team members, your designers, the lighting, the sound, the props, the costumes, the director's vision, all. But in the end, it comes down to whatever group of actors is doing it, and and what they're doing in that night, and how the audience is receiving it, and the back and forth that happens with that. And so the team gets to contribute, and they know that their work will be seen no matter what. Where when you do TV and film, you can do amazing work and it ends up on the cutting room floor. Like a bunch of people are contributing, but in the end, like one person, whether it's the editor, the director, the producer, whatever, tends to sit down and pick and choose and come up with something. And then to me, that's more about one person's vision as opposed to a team kind of thing.
Oh, that's so good. Where I was Susie just reminded me that, like, you know, you've never had a like screening party and not actually made the final cut. Like I had all these people in my house once to watch me on an episode of the Chicago Code. And I think my elbow made it to the final like moment. So theater, it also demands that like it was seen, it happened, you did it. We're having a big debate right now in Hollywood with everything that's going on in the strike. One of those things is, do we go back into casting offices live, or do we make these tapes? And one of the best arguments that I found for it with my actor friends who are doing film and TV is, you know, I can sit in my house and make a self tape, and, you know, I can work really hard on it. Maybe the product's a little bit better because I didn't just get one take with a casting director. However, I have no idea when I send that off if anybody watched it. And even like, I don't book anything. I book so little to what I am actually auditioning for. But when I used to walk into a live room, at least I was giving that work, that preparedness, the choices that I made to a casting director who was live in the room with me to watch that performance. It all happened. And now we're sending off these tapes, and it's like, I don't know if they're fast forwarding through it. I don't know if anybody saw it, you know. At least you had the moment one-to-one with somebody who was taping you. You got to perform your thing all the way through, no interruptions. We're fighting for that.
Yeah.
I was thinking your elbow looks familiar, Mary.
Oh,
Seen it somewhere.
This one, this whole
Yes.
thing.
that's it. Oh,
The star.
of
That
course.
elbow.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You and my mom. You and my mom would know that elbow.
I want to go back for a second to what Jitesh was saying. One of the smartest, most brilliant professors I had in school, in undergrad, taught me a lot of good things about what can create for really quality theater and, you know, powerful stories and universals and all that good stuff. But one thing I to this day disagree with her on is the stance she would take sometimes about if it wasn't meeting the quality of what she was putting out, which again was high quality, it would say not, you know. And I think what you're saying, Jitesh, is the spirit of theater almost is inherently a yes and type spirit, and that and can still be, you know, it doesn't just say we say yes to everything and everything makes it onto the stage, and you know we are trying to go for something good and something well thought out, and then that's what the rehearsal process is for. But there is something I think about the yes and spirit of taking that idea, not neglecting, not shutting down, but rather honoring the spontaneity of that, the purity of that thought, and rolling with it, fine tuning it, and honoring that even on the final performance day, you know, honoring something truly authentic that happened in the rehearsal room or a truly authentic thought. And maybe sometimes I that's the problem people will have with theater or with film and TV that I think it doesn't have, that theater really does, is you can sense sometimes when a moment has been truly sculpted by a director in a beautiful way and it looks great and it's catching the light, and that's awesome. There's a time and a place for that, but there is something special about seeing a moment that really truly was, I feel the spontaneity of that. I feel that from week one of when they started rehearsing this.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit like, maybe to draw a distinction, you know, film and television is a result of editing, and maybe theater is a result of refining. What do you think about that?
Oh, I like that.
Yeah,
I like that
I
a lot.
literally just came up with that. You heard it here first, folks.
See, that's what I'm saying.
Copyright.
That's the spontaneity of the moment.
Theater.
Copyright, Strata, yeah. We have some questions that I want to get to, but I want to go back to something that you know, with me has been a bit of a common theme in these conversations. So everybody in theater school, if you went to theater school, you learned that you only need three things to have theater, right? You need something to perform, someone to perform it, and someone to perform it to. Now, today, right, so those are the three elements. We talked a little bit, like, you know, in your, Mary, in your live audition room, that's theater. You have a piece, you are the actor, and somebody's there in the room with you, learning,
Yes.
experiencing it. I love designers. I, as an actor, never really feel complete until we're all in that tech moment and the set is done. The props are all there. Especially the costume is mine and it's me and it fits and it's all that, you know, stuff. So I guess my question is, you know, today, can we really say it's theater if we don't somehow include all of the, let's say, traditional theater artists in, you know, in the room? I mean, let's think about full on, you know, Goodman, Steppenwolf, you know, whatever, very like, or your college, which has a lot of money to put on production. So you got all this stuff. And then let's think about every one of us, or probably every, you know, maybe every one of us at some point has either experienced or done outdoor theater in a park. I mean, it's still theater, but, you know, today, do we, you know, there is light, there is a set, there are costumes. I mean, can we have theater without the stuff around it? I mean, I'm calling it stuff as if it's not part of theater. Of course, it's part of theater, but, you know.
This is a great question. It also feels like a trap to get us all canceled.
It's not a trap. It's not, I promise. I promise.
I think my short answer is yes. Now, I think on our best days, probably from an audience perspective, certainly from an audience perspective and from an actor perspective, I want all those things involved. But I think theater can still exist with very few elements of like
The basics.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I do believe in, this is where I might get in a little bit of trouble. I do believe in quality. I do think there is I think ultimately, yes, art is subjective at the end of the day, but I do think there is a difference between good and great. And I think when it's when it's a great production, it's going to have all of the elements. It's going to have all the elements working in unison and working well and honoring that spontaneity. But it can still be theater, maybe not of as high of quality, if it lacks those members. And that could be true even without actors, right? Like puppetry could perhaps be theater, right? It's not like the actors are the main characters of theater. Like you're saying, it's a collaborative process. I would still say a puppet show is theater. And maybe that's a bad example because I guess that inherently is never gonna need people, but actually it is.
Yeah.
But you get what I'm saying, that
Mhm.
at its best, it's a collaborative including of everybody, but it can still be theater in its bare form, without everybody involved, if it still honors at least the basics of what we've been talking about, an attempt at empathy, an attempt at these universal themes, and the spontaneity of sharing and collaborating.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Well, I think that too, though, it's a case by case basis, you know, because look at Waiting for Godot has almost no elements other than the two guys sitting on a stage saying stuff. Or similarly, what was the show? Steppenwolf did it right before the pandemic. Namir Smallwood was in it. Spike Lee did it as a film.
Passover?
It was like,
Passover.
What?
Passover?
Yes, Passover. Also, very little. I mean, and I don't say that disrespectfully, but there was no set. There was some lighting, but really, it was those two guys and then a couple of people that interacted with them, but mostly those two guys. You know, so I think I think every show is different. And I think it does come back for me to the words. Are there words there that are important? Are there words there that are going to feed my soul in some way or another? And for me, that's kind of the key.
That's interesting. And as we try to define this or say it out loud, I keep going back to like, is it theater? You know, you're asking about, is it theater without the technical aspects? Is it theater without an actor? Like when we go see a fireworks show, is that theater?
I'm gonna have to just go out on a limb and say no. I don't think that's theater because like the firework is, to me, is not an actor, but I'm not here to define it for all y'all. So you tell me what you.
So here's what I'm going to say that's probably
Yeah.
super controversial is
Do it.
I believe that we can have so few technical elements, but you've got to have some performance, some person, some body to deliver it. I think that is, yeah. Can somebody help me with this?
No, I
Breathing body. in the moment.
Yeah. So whether you have the lights and the costume and the stuff, I agree with Danny on like the idea that you can go from good to great, and attention to detail in theater is always so helpful. Like you, Michael, seem to be working from the outside in, that like, you know, that's the thing. And that's great. You know, I didn't know who my last character, I didn't know her until they put me in the costume. And then it was like, oh, I got it. I figured it out.
Yeah.
But sorry, Danny, go ahead.
No, I don't know. I don't know. Which
That's
is a
okay.
beautiful thing, right? Like we're that's kind of what the conversation is. And perhaps that should be some of what's led with, so as to not neglect and not shut down people's ideas of what theater can be. I don't want to be like that professor in that sense, but I also think Susie makes a really good point about the nature of, is theater inherently of the human body and of the human experience in a way that a fireworks show wouldn't be, but also there are human beings behind the specific timing of when the fireworks come out, and maybe that's not of the human experience, but that is of the universe experience, that is nature at play. So is that not is that not the universe's theater? Now we're getting all over.
Well,
But,
and it's evoking an emotion, right? It's
right.
Yeah.
We can break it down, to me, it's the same when someone says, oh, listening to music is my therapy. And I have to interject there, like what you are trying to go for is it's therapeutic. Therapy is therapy. Similarly, a firework display is theatrical.
Oh, that's so true.
Theater is theater because you have a live actor, a writer behind it who's trying to convey something that they wouldn't have without creating these characters. So everything we see, there could be robots moving around with an artificial intelligence written script, which would be theatrical. But is it theater? No, that is a human kind of we get to make our rules around it, and we have. And so theater is, even at its bare bones, we still need a writer behind it that needs to convey something through these characters, portrayed by an actor. Everything else, which unfolds live, which is thrilling to watch, sad to watch, is theatrical, but possibly not theater.
I'm telling you, we're gonna.
Here's my elbow again. Okay.
We're gonna.
And strike the robots. Strike. Drop
the mic.
We are going to save the world from the scourge of AI just based on what you said alone.
Absolutely. So well done.
That theater is gonna like right the collective ship. Okay,
just give them a you can't sit with us.
Yeah. We could go on and on and on about this, and I actually had questions about what's the purpose of theater, but we're just gonna maybe bring you back for another panel discussion on that. But right now, we actually have some questions that have been posed to us from the outside world. And I'm going to start reading those, and let's see, what time is it? Yeah, let's maybe give about 5 minutes on this, and everybody just jump in with your answers. Okay, so first question. What is the worst disaster you have witnessed on stage in front of an audience, be it prop, set, or actor related?
So disaster is a big word. I would say I was in the audience once. I was seeing Vanessa Redgrave do The Year of Magical Thinking, which is a one-woman show about Joan Didion losing her husband. And the play starts with her, they've been visiting her child in the hospital, and they go home and the husband drops dead. And we're like 2 minutes into the show. And just as Vanessa says, my husband has dropped dead, a little old man's hearing aid battery went off. And people are like looking around, and then they start elbowing him, and he's like, what? And they're like, your hearing aid battery. And he's like, what? Because he couldn't hear.
Oh.
And finally they got it off. But I was just in the audience like, start the show over. You know, like, I'm like, you're 2 minutes in. I'm like, begin again. But she kept going. So I mean, it wasn't a disaster for her, but it was interesting. I would have started the show over.
Yes.
Yeah.
Cool. Who else?
I mean, I'm still trying to get over this moment, and it involves myself. But in the 9th grade, junior high production, Jenna Brooks and I were playing The Odd Couple. Can't remember who was Felix and who was Oscar, but I came out and I said my first 3 lines and couldn't remember a damn thing after those 3 lines.
Oh, no.
And I left poor Jenna Brooks. And if you're watching, Jenna, I'm very sorry. I left the stage. I walked off stage, never to return. Didn't, yeah, what a pal, huh? I keep seeing this meme going around that's like the word that you mispronounced. You've probably seen this, like the word that you mispronounced once and it haunts you to this day. And I'm like, what about all those words that I didn't say in that play? And then I left my scene partner on stage. And so then she sort of had to improvise, like, to get to that first act was very short. I'm still recovering, and I'm sure Jenna Brooks is too. I'm sorry, Jenna.
I mean, we're all behaving. I don't know. In my mind, I'm behaving like this was, a professional production, 2 weeks ago or something like that. But you were in the ninth. You were 9 or in the 9th grade? You were in the
9th grade.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I'm telling you, I just did a show with a 3-week run here in Memphis, and every night before I walked out on stage, I was like, "That's coming back. That's going to come back and get you one of these days."
Awesome. Who else?
Mine was with me too. It was in the beginning of my show. It's a solo show, and I remember, like, I always kind of lean towards audience members who are a little too excited about laughing at the jokes, and they become like my kind of safe island anytime like I look at them and I interact with them, because they give permission to the rest of the audience to like laugh, let loose. So there was this one particular lady who kept laughing and was like so enthusiastic, and I was like, this is amazing, she's going to be my anchor. And I realized as the show proceeds and I go into the darker bits, that she wasn't like laughing at my jokes, she was just laughing, and she kept laughing throughout. It's on recording. Kyle, our friend here, has it on recording too. I'm talking about like losing my home. I'm talking about not fitting in. I'm talking about loss and grief. And at almost like a punchline, it's delivering to her. And she keeps laughing through it. And yeah, after the show, she meets me. I have no idea who she is. And her boyfriend is next to her. And she's like, I kept squeezing her to like not laugh, but I was like, well, it's done. But that was disaster. But like it wasn't a big deal, because people, the good thing is, like, she was so so regular in her just laughing, like people learn to like zone her out. So it's like, oh, this is going to keep happening throughout the show, let's just focus on what is being said here.
Yeah, so a little bit like in many non-equity theaters in Chicago when the train goes by.
Exactly. She was the passing train. Yep, she was that train passing train wreck every.
I'm so sorry, Jitesh. I've since been medicated.
It was your elbow.
Yep, it's the same elbow that was squeezed constantly. Stop it.
That's a nightmare. But I'm glad that it like got into everybody's heads where they could kind of be with you again.
Awesome. Danny, you got a short story you want to share with us, or you don't have to? I don't mean to like put you on the spot, like tell your like worst nightmare or anything like that.
It's just traumatic, is all. It's not.
So by all means, do it. Say it live to a public audience. Yeah.
It's less elaborate. It's not a whole 3-act story. It's more just that I took a stand-up class, and I thought I was somewhat funny, and I went up and did like the final, and it was like a 3-minute set, and I just sat in agony and didn't get a single laugh.
Oh.
Just like started looking at my teacher like, I think it's time to go. And she's like, no, stick it out. Just give me the look like, stick it out. I'm just like, okay. And so that was, I don't know if I'll ever go back to try stand-up comedy, but that was a very disastrous and humbling experience. A lot
It
of humble pie I had to eat that day.
it
Oh,
was it made you the person that you are today.
That's a generous way of putting it. Yeah. Yeah.
All right, so that question was from Brian Amadei, and thank you very much, Brian, for that. There is another question intervening, but there's a third question here that I think is actually a good companion to what we just talked about, and that comes from E.M. Davis, which is, what was your most recent joyful experience in the theater, either as an artist or as an audience member?
I'll save myself here. So good, Lucha Teatro at Goodman. I won't harp on the pro wrestling thing too much, but there was something so amazing about the established energy of the room, which is we're all gonna cheer for the guy who we like and boo and it asks something of you as an audience member, because it asks for you to not worry about what the person to the left or right of you are thinking, and to really immerse yourself in the experience, to be part of the story. And the actors are looking to the audience, which is something you never see, right? The audience doesn't exist in a lot of ways. And they're saying, "Oh, screw you," and "Boo, you suck." And it's just like, man, that I have never had so much fun in the theater. So I guess this is one big pitch for everyone to go see that show. But theater can be a lot of different things. It can be that, and it can be so effing fun when we get to participate like that.
Yeah, participation and permission to do, right? I
Yes,
mean, just like,
totally.
often we're edited from like voicing those kinds of things, right?
And the show is better. In this case, the show is better. It hinges on participation. It's
Wow.
better for the actors and the audience. The more you, as an audience member, have the bravery to say, I have an opinion about this wrestler, and I'm going to let him know it. And that's going to give him fuel to give me something back. And it's going to make things awesome.
Amazing. Amazing.
I
Okay.
have a piggyback
Yeah.
on that, which is kind of in a different lens. I just did a 2-woman show that is a thriller, very, very dark. So not as boisterous as Danny's experience, but my scene partner and I are in, 3 weeks of rehearsals. It's 2 women talking for 90 minutes. So you can imagine it's pretty dense. It's British, we're working with our director. And by the time we were getting ready to open, I was like, I don't think this is any good. I don't know that we're doing, and I was looking at my scene partner and she's doing everything great. And I'm like, if I'm holding up with her, then we're telling this story, but it so wasn't working. And the show is very much a thriller, like on page, it's a page turner. And it did not work until opening night when we had our audience, because our audience, and even though, I think is a good theater going audience, and I'm putting that in quotes, is like, quiet and doesn't, like trying not to laugh through everybody's stories, all the time when that's inappropriate. But in a thriller like this, the way that we were able to manipulate them and the audible response we got back was like, this is how this show works, which is not something that I could discover in just the rehearsal process when it was the 3 of us making it. And the process was great. It really didn't come to life until we had that audience going, oh, no, I was really satisfying. It was really
That's
satisfying.
great. That's awesome. Susie, Jitesh?
I just had a chance it just closed last weekend, but I saw Birthday Candles at Northlight, which
Okay.
is Noah Hadel's most recent play. He wrote Smokefall, and it's a beautiful story about a woman from 17 to 101, and it's a cast of 6 folks, and there was such humor, and I don't know, it was just, people really were moved by it. They laughed, they cried, the whole 9 yards, but it was really joyful. And it had a really beautiful design. There were some lighting elements that just made an element of the story really touching. And that was a great night.
Awesome. Awesome.
Saw this solo show called Antonio's Song at Goodman, and this guy just sharing true stories about his adulthood and childhood in the Bronx. And it was a different kind of joy in that, like, it was very dark, but like the experiences he was sharing growing up in the Bronx, how I could relate to them growing up in Mumbai city in India. and things that I wasn't able to talk about because they were so traumatic. But he's out here performing it for hundreds of people. Was in my heart, I was like, oh, if any of these people were to know about some experiences from my childhood, they wouldn't think it too weird because he just set a precedent for it. So I felt like less judged, so to speak. Um,
Wow.
but originally my answer was going to be watching drunk Shakespeare. So I'm gonna stick with that now. Watching Hamlet slur through his words, like priceless.
Also good. Yes.
Also good. Yes, both very good answers. We'll let you weigh in on two. That's great. That's great. I'm gonna panelist privilege. I'm gonna tell one of mine. And I was in the 8th grade, and we took a trip, a drama club trip out of town to see the University of Michigan's a touring company of The Tempest. And the guy who played Prospero, the way they staged his last speech, as he's talking about releasing and releasing and releasing, and there was a spotlight on him, and it like gradually went down to just a pin spot on his head, and then he spoke his last word and went out like that, and I was just like, what's happened? What's
I
happened?
love
Where did he
it.
go? Oh my god. Yeah, like my little 8th grade mind was just like blown. So
Magic. Magic.
yeah.
It's magic.
Exactly. Yes, it was absolutely magic. Okay, let's see, what time is it? We can work this in. We can totally work this in. Okay, Jake Hooker from Detroit asked us, what would you or do you tell the next generation about your hopes for the future of US theater?
I'm really excited. I'm gonna piggyback on because there's also a question in this queue about how has the theater been influenced by the things that have been going on with the pandemic and Zoom and blah blah blah. And I'm so happy that I think the folks that are coming down the pike, I'll speak as an older white woman, cisgender white woman. They're so much more open to other people and other experiences. They're so aware of trying to have inclusion happen and be meaningful and not a gesture. They're concerned with language so that we don't have as much misogyny or fat phobia or gay bashing or fill in the blank. I think there's so much energy in the air. In psychology, we talk about the fact that you can't have change until there's a crisis. And I feel like this last couple of years has really given us all a chance to sit back and look. Now, it's on all of us to make actions happen. We've had lots of words. Are we having actions? Are the words going to be followed through on? We don't know yet. But boy, it's certainly been a change in my lifetime in looking at the energy and the inclusiveness.
Does it feel on balance? This is this is something I feel, obviously, but does it feel on balance that if we take various art forms, we take various, I don't know, public offerings, let's say, there's something about it's messy, it needs to be dealt with, and it's um, uh, contentious at times, but it does feel like to me that theater is a optimal space to have those conversations. We're used to conflict. We're used to having, getting in a rehearsal room, let's say, as a for instance, and hashing things out. We're generally ahead of the curve on things like generally speaking. I recognize all the conversation and what's been written about like how far we need to go, even so. But I'm encouraged, I guess I would say, by our natural environment seems to lend itself more to grappling with those kinds of things than other natural environments, as a for instance. What do you think about that?
I think that's true. I think it's proven to be true. Like you said, I think there's work to be done.
Yeah.
My hope going into the question for theater going forward is to truly trust to trust our audiences and ourselves with our proven commitment towards bettering the theater landscape and the world that we're trying to use theater to benefit. And again, I do believe that can happen more effectively through conversations about universals than about conversations that can make people feel isolated or can be divisive. There's a way to, I think the universal conversations accomplish the goals that we should trust that we're all moving towards in a more effective way than art that could, or theater that could be construed as more making a point for some of the audience to appreciate and for some of the audience to not. That's my view. And that's my hope for theater moving forward, to really trust our intellect with what we're doing.
I mean, theater's such a safe space to like try things on, right? As an audience member or, exposure, or as an actor, you can kind of try out what an idea means, what a different way of life means, why was I always, I mean, I'm now drifting, but like our local library got defunded because, there was a pride display down here in Arkansas. And I'm like, why are we still talking about gay people? What is like, our drag queens reading books to kids? What is that? It's of no interest to me, to be hateful towards that group of people. And then my dream is that in a theater situation, you can go watch people who are not like you, who perhaps scared you, and develop a new opinion because you had the safe space to do that in, right? I don't know if I'm articulating that well, but
I think so. And anyone else? I'm going to let us run over just a little bit, but anybody else want to weigh in on that last question?
The hope and excitement for the future of theater in America would be, for me, just finally like immigrants getting a chance to weigh in on the American experience. And that is wild. The perspectives coming out from that is wild, because not only for the said immigrants who are putting out these shows, but for America-born Americans to get a different perspective on the exact same country that they share with them. Yeah. Because I see the reaction, I'm like, oh yeah, you did not know that, huh? And I'm not saying just the bad, I'm saying the good, the bad, the bizarre, all of it.
Yeah, that's amazing. And we are sadly, once again, going to have to leave it there. This is my favorite thing to do with Straw Dog Theater Company, and I wish that we could just go on and on and on. You have not disappointed. I thank you. I loved this conversation so much. It has been an amazing conversation. For something completely different, but perhaps related. To wrap us up, we'll do a little bit of a lightning round. I'm going to ask each one of our panelists to think about a book that they absolutely must tell to all the world, or a play or something recent that was beloved to them. And while you ruminate on that, I have some thank yous that I need to tell to our audience. And the first is that this amazing panel has joined us, and I can't thank you enough. We appreciate you being here. We appreciate your perspectives, your dedication to this art form, and your willingness to share in this conversation. We also want to thank you, Office Hours Global, Edwin Ruiz, and Mondo Machine for helping to make this all possible. The Straw Dog Theater Company is an ensemble, and this show is made possible by the ensemble. So I want to thank all of our friends on the ensemble, especially Kyle Hammond, who is in the ensemble and is the creator of this show. Straw Dog, we operate on a free theater model, and our productions are available to anyone free of charge. So we can only do this with the generous donations from our community. You can find out more about that on our website, strawdog.org. And our final thank you is to all of you tuning in, either live or viewing at your leisure some other time, maybe participating in the chat room and supporting the show with your donations and subscriptions. Thank you for helping us to keep this conversation going. So, okay, let's have those recommendations. Who wants to go first?
I recommend the book Tom Lake by Ann Patchett. It's her latest, and it's about people doing summer stock. So it's quite the theater book.
So it's a horror story. Got it. Okay.
Yep.
I recommend any article by Betty Gilpin, who's a working actor, but specifically, the article is called "Why Acting is a Seesaw of Death," and you can find it in the Hollywood Reporter.
Nice, nice. Who's next?
Anything written by a friend, Spencer Huffman, a local Chicago writer. Anything written by him, The Shape of Bones, particularly any of his writing.
Fantastic, fantastic.
And a quick plug, Danny will be starring in one of Spencer's plays, Evil Perfect, which will be the inaugural production of a new Chicago theater called Bramble Theater, and that'll be
Oh, right,
coming
yeah.
soon.
Did Danny
Nice.
not plug that himself because he was too busy plugging the wrestling show?
Yeah.
I just love wrestling. I love it so much.
All right, Jitesh, take us home.
Mine is the first book that Junot Diaz wrote, This Is How You Lose Her, or maybe that was his second book. The same guy who wrote Brief Wondrous Life of Oscar, something. But yeah, the book is called This Is How You Lose Her by Junot Diaz, because it really uses language beautifully without making it sound stuffy. You can still be expressive while capturing dialectic street tones. So yeah, it blew my mind because it was like, oh, you could write like that. Gave somebody like me permission to express myself the way I would.
Oh my gosh, fantastic. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much. We will see you next week for another amazing conversation with more theater artists. Please submit your questions so that we can ask them online to our panel. If you want to join, or if you have a friend that wants to join, again, go to strawdog.org, thank you /thank you5 page. And finally, again, thank you for watching. Have a great night.
Good night.
Good night.